Did we like the draft? The weekend, everyone spent the weekend, it seemed like to me, talking about all the things that need to be fixed about all of that. And we got there fast because the All-Star game a few years ago was fun and competitive. And all of a sudden, now all the questions are about how do you fix this? It's terrible. And it sort of ignores, Stugotz, that this was a relevant thing back before cable television. Like back before we could see all the stars, before they were all everywhere all the time. And so there's nothing special about what you're watching. And if you're going to make it, they're also not going to try.
Well, I mean, they play each other, back when we were growing up, they didn't play each other against each other as frequently as they do now. So there was something special to seeing East versus West and all that.
I just found it odd, right? We've outlived the usefulness of all of these things. We've got to dress them up for kids. Like, I don't know if you've read what Ethan Strauss wrote, but the sports have a bit of a future crisis coming because kids are not on cable, man. They've unplugged, and so they don't love sports as much. Like, there's a whole group of kids out there that are tomorrow's customers that are less interested in all this stuff that we grew up on, the nostalgia of the All-Star game. And so the dunk contest, we want to fix that because none of the stars want to participate. You've got a game that nobody cares about, that they're fooling around, that Jaylen Brown is calling a glorified layup line. And it's just a big party all weekend, but it doesn't mean anything.
Well, normally.
Right.
In different
just
places.
not in Utah.
Yeah, but
right?
I will say that I thought that on the whole, the All-Star weekend was great. They had something that was super memorable. It takes a great dunker occasionally or a huge star to connect to the audience and get into them, but the dunk contest was very memorable. And I think it's the takeaway from the weekend. And they've done some things to augment the NBA All-Star game, and it just wasn't great. This year, we had a guy go off for over 50 points. Usually that's something exciting, not so much this time, but I don't think we necessarily have to do what we did with the NFL Pro Bowl. Now, I guess maybe that's a trend because we realize that we can change something.
But am I wrong when I tell you, though, that the conversation fairly immediately about that game, during that game, Tatum has 55, who cares? Everyone scores 50 these days. Those guys aren't trying. It's nonsense what they're doing.
On the balance of the weekend, people had a good time. They enjoyed the draft. They enjoyed Charles and Shaq and their own broadcasts. They enjoyed the halftime show. They can't all be winners when it comes to games.
I'm just asking you guys about outgrowing this thing.
I mean, yeah, it's not as cool. I think that there are certain things that they could do, maybe tap in more to people's fan base. I don't like that All-Star games. Major League Baseball did this. It's such a revenue maker to put people in all-star jerseys because you can sell the jerseys. I like seeing all the different colored jerseys out there and being able to identify my guys a little cooler. But it's an all-star game. It has a formula. The NBA has actually been pretty progressive over the years in trying to tweak it. They more than any of the other leagues, they introduced the draft. I didn't like what they did where we're not going to have a last reserve player picked to protect people's feelings because I thought there was great drama in Kevin Durant and LeBron James trying to avoid picking James Harden. There was good content that came out of it.
But there was a last reserve pick. That guy has to know where he really is in the pecking order. It's like
I've never really cared about all-star games. Like, to me, Dan, even when they were great in the 80s and 90s, what you cared about was the dunk contest. It was All-Star Saturday night. And to Mike's point, and he's right, that was pretty good this year.
That's kind of the thing is that, like, at least for me, like, All-Star games are exhausting because they've turned into now, like, 4-day affairs that by the time you get to the actual game, it's like, enough already. And this is on, like, at 9 o'clock at night after a weekend full of dunk contests and celebrity games and future games and all this stuff. And then they drag in this draft that seemed never-ending before the game. It's like, can we just get to the game? Like, I changed the channel. Vin Diesel couldn't even save it for me.
Really?
They had Vin Diesel there, and I was like, oh.
He was struggling.
Wow. He didn't save it for me. I was just like, let's play the game already.
Shocking.
And then I checked back in. I watched an old James Bond movie this weekend. I checked back in. I go, oh, this game's still going on. Like, and then the format, you have to get to like 182 points or something like that. I'm like, this is going to take forever. There's not even a clock to tell me how long I have to watch this. Baseball's the same, though, Dan. Like, baseball's the same thing. When baseball was down here, like, I always thought, like, man, it'd be so cool to go to, like, an all-star game, right? There are so many, like, hoops you have to jump through to get to that game that by the time you get to the game on Tuesday, it's like, crap, I was here until like 11 o'clock at night at a home run derby last night, which down here was like a great home run derby. But I had to go through the home run derby. I had a futures game. I had the celebrity softball game. Like, there's just too much before these All-Star games now.
You know what happened in last year's All-Star game? LeBron James hit a fadeaway to win it. And everyone was celebrating the Elam ending and how exciting and how they fix it. You can't let it go 1 year. They all need to be LeBron winning the game at the end.
You can't let the Heat go 1 year without making the finals?
No, I can't let the Heat go missing out on 10 superstars. That's what I can't let.
I don't want people to lose sight of the fact that it's not normal for Damian Lillard to pull up before half court and not have the net move because he makes the shot so cleanly. Like, I'm not
seen him do it.
Even though there are aliens in the sky that we're shooting down, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that a human being can do that. It seems pretty excellent.
Do it with defense on you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on.
Fair enough.
We've seen him do it with defense on him. I mean, that's more exciting. So to see him do it with no one guarding him, I mean,
thought the whole comment of the weekend was, how do you fix this? How do you fix this? But I think Billy's right. And not only do I think Billy's right, I think in a celebrity game, the rules should be different. So that Miz shot, that shot has to count. Even though it came slightly after the buzzer, but he made a shot from half court. If it's a celebrity game, you cannot have that shot not count.
It's after the whistle, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's rules, Dan. Without rules is chaos.
Not in a celebrity
the
game. Not
integrity
if
of the
the Miz
celebrity game.
makes one from half court to tie it. I'm not wrong about this.
If you're on the other team, Dan, how would you feel?
Exactly.
If you're betting on it, how would you feel as well? And I would say it's a celebrity game. If if the Miz makes it from half court, you do not deny it because it was a 10th of a second after the buzzer.
Was there a 4-point play in that game? Because I just saw highlights and I saw there was this giant ruffles line, it looked like, in the middle of the court. Like, if you hit it past that, was it worth more points? Or, like, if he made that, was he just tying the game and then it would go to overtime? DK Metcalf, by the way. Oh, what an athlete.